Hey guys, it's Rickard. We're going to be animating some modifiers today. So I've got a sphere, a cylinder, and a box. We will be going over a few different modifiers. Not all of them will actually work for animation's sake, but if you really want to just add a little bit of spice to your basic primitive objects, if you're doing some type of simple animation, this might be a way to do that. So we can maybe check out this cylinder first and throw a modifier on it. If you recall that your modifiers are in the Modify panel under the Modifier list. So if you go down to that, we're going to find the Bend modifier. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if you can see where this little orange spike is here, okay, it's actually found under here. So that's your gizmo. And wherever you move that gizmo, it's going to actually, sorry, that's your center. Your gizmo is the whole box. Wherever you move that center, that's where your modifier is going to work from. So in essence, this is the center of it, and everything that is going to radiate outwards and modify that object. So what we're going to do is go in here and just try changing an angle on it. By changing that angle, we can have that move around. If I was to move that center, let's say we move that center up here, we try that angle now, you can see how it moves the other way. If I move that center really to the center of the object, it moves it around that way. Okay? You can't animate the center. You really have to pick a spot and leave it. Okay? So if we were to do some little tiny animation with this, let's say we turn on auto key, and I'm going to maybe start it off at that angle. So let's just say 100 degrees. And let's say at keyframe 20, we want to go to negative 100 degrees. So we'll go back and forth. Maybe at the next interval of 20 keyframes, we'll go to, let's say 50 degrees, and then negative 50 degrees, and so on and so on. And you can see how you'll eventually get something kind of going back and forth. Now mine's a little bit linear because I've got my in and out set to linear. If I was to change that, what do we do with curves for modified objects? Because normally they're not found in the actual transform area. But if you look down a little bit, there's something that's called modified objects. So let's open that up. Here's the Bend modifier. Well, I don't see anything, so I have to open it up again a little bit more. And inside that, remember, in the Bend modifier, there are a bunch of different things that you can do. So right away, the angle. See, if we click on direction or lower limit or anything else, the angle has a series of very linear type of curves. So if we select those and let's say make them auto, we're going to get a much smoother playback on this. Okay, and of course you can modify these and change them up however you like, just like you would any other type of object. Maybe I'll scale these in a little bit more. Maybe something like that. Okay, whatever it is. You want to put this to 0 maybe? Sure, let's take that and put it right to 0 so it's back to a straight up and down object. If you really want to start adjusting your timing on that, you can move the whole thing in or out. We can make it kind of a really quick wobble. That's maybe a little too fast. Stretch that out a little bit. Okay, there you go. So that's really putting a modifier on an object, setting some keys, and adjusting those keys however you like. So if we look at, let's say, another one, let's grab the sphere, and I'll put on let's see, the stretch modifier. Now, before I do that, I'm going to just make one of these. I'll make a copy and I'll delete that stretch modifier. One thing that we've been working on is using the select and squash option for your scale. So if I go in, let's say to 20, and I squash this down, you'll see how it squashes out. And if I bring it back up, you'll see how it stretches, and so on. I'll just copy this keyframe, or the first keyframe again. So we've got a little bit of a loop. If we were to do that with the modifier, the modifier works a little bit different. So if we stretch this out, and it almost acts just really, really, really exaggerated. Okay, so I'll try to match the other one a little bit, just so we can see the differences. So right about there, and then we'll stretch it up. And you can see the way that it changes shape a little bit. And then we go back to 0. Okay, so it definitely has a change in shape as it's working. So really, use either one, but one's going to retain the volume, one isn't as well. It's really going to be up to you and your taste. What we can do is maybe try changing the amplify here. So that's going to really stretch it in or stretch it out. It's just almost like an exaggeration, right? So it's going to be completely up to you how you want to try using that, if you even want to use it at all. Okay, so that's that option. And then we've got this cube. So if I use something like twist on the cube, okay, and twist is kind of fun because you can actually have it looking around a little bit. The one thing to notice though is that we've got some geometry errors if we really try to twist it around. And that's because we're actually just lacking geometry on the inside. So watch what happens if I just drop a level and I start adding some height segments. Okay, now it's going to help to retain that. So let me bring it back down. You can see how it is. If I bring it back up, you can see how it is. It's going to really help to retain that volume and instead of collapsing in on the edges. You could try doing a couple on both sides. Doesn't really help too much. Okay, so when we go back to the twist, you can really see how that helps twisting it around. Now, if you were to move the center on that as well, so if we try moving the center, you'll see how it moves the bottom part. You can make it look almost like it's walking, right? Okay, so for example, if we were to start the box off at one side of the screen and then have it move over to the other side of the screen, like so, and then let's say we started off with a little bit of a shuffle here, and next we want to bring it around that way and go another 10 keyframes or so and bring it around that way, and so on and so on. You can see how it starts looking like there's a bit of a walking box going across. So that's kind of fun. Now you can stack modifiers. We've got a twist modifier on this, so you can always put something else on. So let's say we add a bend modifier to this. And if you do the bend modifier, well, geez, you can really get a lot of motion to this little box as he walks, right? So now not only is he bending his legs around like so, but you could, start him off where he's kind of bending over to the side, and he bends over to the other side, just as he's walking. Okay, so just a few things to consider, right? Maybe if you want to help spice up the movement of a really simple object around the screen, give that stuff a shot and see how it works for you. Okay, look for the next video.